Storm tragically lost her powers in the second episode of X-Men 97, leaving her feeling lost and even leaving the team. But fear not, X-Men fans, there's a glimmer of hope that Storm will regain her powers, and it all has to do with this guy. What's going on, Marvelites? I'm Joe, and in this video I'm going to break down how Storm might get her powers back in X-Men 97, all thanks to Forge and a specific storyline in the comics. In the second episode of X-Men 97, Storm saved Magneto by jumping in front of the blast from Executioner, rendering her powerless. This is actually very similar to when Storm lost her powers in the comics. In Uncanny X-Men issue 185 by Chris Claremont and John Romita Jr., Storm jumped in front of a blast to save Rogue, and the blast was from Henry Peter Gierich with a special new weapon designed to drain mutants of their powers. But the biggest twist to this whole story is who actually designed this weapon, which we'll get to in a second. This leads us right into the next issue of Uncanny X-Men number 186, written by Chris Claremont and Barry Windsor Smith. This is a classic X-Men story, and it is titled Life Death, which is actually part of the title of episode number 4 in X-Men 97. So at the end of the last issue of Uncanny X-Men, Forge saves Storm and brings her back to Dallas, Texas to help her recuperate from being shot. And in Life Death, during their time together, you can start to see their attraction build for one another. It's actually kind of very cheesy. It's almost like they're preteens and they don't know how to explain their feelings to each other. And don't act like you don't know what I'm talking about, because I know you've been there. And as their attraction grows for one another, they ultimately bond over the feelings of being isolated from society as well as being betrayed by their bodies. Unfortunately, when one person in a relationship is keeping a secret, it doesn't go so well. Now, if you don't know, Forge is also a mutant with the special power of being very mechanically inclined and very intuitive about how mechanical things work, basically allowing him to create just about anything that he can come up with in his mind. And if you haven't figured it out by now, Forge was the creator of the weapon that Gierich used to shoot Storm, rendering her powerless. Of course, after finding this out, Storm is very upset with Forge and leaves and basically goes and wanders on her own way. Now, the second part of this story, Life Death from the Heart of Darkness, again written by Chris Claremont and Barry Windsor Smith, finds Storm roaming the plains of Africa, and clearly she's not doing so hot. She hasn't eaten too much. I'm pretty sure she's dehydrated, and because of all of this, she is delirious. So much so that as she's roaming the plains of Africa, she's starting to begin to have hallucinations, including one of Forge and her entire X-Men team. As Storm is roaming, she eventually meets up with this young pregnant woman, and she's able to guide her back to her village, ultimately helping their entire farming community without the use of her powers. Storm then realizes that she doesn't need the weather conjuring powers to be the powerful person that she actually is. And after this realization, she decides to go back and join her X-Men family. Now, Storm does spend a fair amount of her time without the use of her powers, and in fact, she actually battles Cyclops for leadership of the X-Men and actually defeats him, and that causes Cyclops to leave with his then wife, Madeline, and we all know that story now, huh? But a few issues later, Storm actually meets up again with Forge. However, she realizes that she was tricked by the Adversary to think that Forge was evil. For those of you that don't know, the Adversary is an ancient mystical entity that utilizes trickery to achieve their goals. So while Storm thought Forge was evil, in her attempt to kill him, they both fall through this other dimension that the Adversary had opened, putting them in a parallel dimension to Earth. And while in this dimension, Forge and Storm of course spend a lot of time together and ultimately end up falling back in love. And during this time, Forge was able to figure out how to get Storm's powers back. And in Uncanny X-Men issue 226, Forge did what he does best and built something that was able to restore Storm's powers. Now, while I don't think that this will exactly be what happens in X-Men 97, I do think that Forge will have had some part in playing in creating the weapon that the Executioner used against Storm. If you're still here, I truly appreciate you sticking around this long. If you want to be part of a great Marvel community and you want more Marvel content just like this, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button down below. And until the next video, Excelsior.